Snow, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I really, really
Likewise.
loved the film. I found it pretty fascinating, actually. Just so you know a little bit about me, I've been writing about food and wine in the Bay Area in California for over 20 years. So I thought I knew about the Israeli wine industry, but after watching your movie, it just kind of a lot of issues that I didn't realize were happening. On the ground are happening, and it
Yeah.
provided such a richness and a context to me, so I appreciate that. um, I thought we would
It's great,
start.
great to
Yeah, tell
hear.
me, are you
Uh,
based in Israel?
yes, I'm based in Tel Aviv, born and raised Tel Avivian.
And I'm curious, what brought you to the subject of wine?
Well, first of all, I'm a wine lover. I love wine. I've been drinking wine for I don't know all my life, I think.
Long time.
Uh,
Same.
But recently, like in the last I don't know, 20 plus years, more deeply involved and interested in learning more about wine. And as a wine lover yourself, every year that passes, we get more into it and learn more things, and it's just interesting and a beautiful way to learn about the world. And when it came to write my movie, I was researching all kinds of subjects, and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if I could mix both of my loves of cinema and wine together? So we started research, and what I found was jaw-dropping,
Yeah.
and it made me understand that I must make this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, and as a wine lover, it's true. You end up learning so much about history and architecture and culture and art and
Yeah,
food, and particularly with your subject of Israel. It was so fascinating to me, the identity crisis that these winemakers and vintners are experiencing right now, being an ancient world, as they say, and also like even newer world than Australia and New Zealand. So I thought we could talk
very
about
new.
that. And I also definitely want to get to the socio-political and religious connotations that come with the film. But I thought maybe for people that don't know, we could start a little bit with the history. I mean, we know that, the oldest amphora basically, even carved into the limestone, um, anywhere in the world was in Israel about, 3,600 years ago. I don't think what people realize is that more recently in, let's say, the 1800s, the role of the Baron Edward Rothschild and his role in establishing Israel. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we had in ancient times, there was a flourishing wine culture here, like full blown for many, many years. And a lot of wine, was flowing from the Levant and from Israel, Lebanon, all this area to the world, much, hundreds of years before Europe. So this is
Yeah,
like a very ancient culture we're talking about. But in more recent times, there's a lot of things happen in the way. But in recent times, when the wine culture in Israel was restarted, it was restarted in the late 19th century
yeah,
by Baron Edmund de Rothschild, which is the owner of one of the most famous wineries in Bordeaux, like very well known winery that everyone knows. Um, so it was like, whoa, I knew that winery, like uh,
same.
Chateau um, Chateau Lafitte Rothschild, and
Oh, yeah.
I
I mean,
and I
talk
was
about a
like,
legend.
yeah. And he was Jewish, and he had a lot of ways to invest in the uh, new culture of wine in Israel and restarted and started over. And that's why we say we are kind of a very new wine culture. But basically, if you're talking about quality wine, it's just the last 40 years that Israel has been making like high-end quality wine. So it's
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
new.
talk about next, actually, is if we fast forward to this quality revolution, as you say in the movie, um, and the major players, the Margalites, the Yardens, the Golan Heights, how did they know, like, what? So we're talking like the 80s. How did they know what to plant where? How did they know about, the various microclimates, the terroir? Was it just like, let's put some Cabernet here and see what happens? Or, I mean, how did they know?
Well, at the end of the not and the big at the end of the 19th century, when the barons restarted the industry, they planted a lot of Mediterranean um, uh,
Varietals.
stocks like Carignan and
Yeah.
uh, uh, grapes like that didn't work so well, and Grenache and things that are heavily planted now in Israel. But it didn't work so well from many reasons, and it was like it was more like a generic kind of wine, nothing really high quality, but they did try to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
the Baron wanted to make high quality wine here. That's what he strives for, and that's why he invested a lot of like big cellars and big wineries, the
Got it.
Carmel winery in Rishon and in Zichron Yaakov. So the intent was there. But in the 80s, I think the winemakers wanted to plant something else than what was known before, and they went for the biggest names.
Sure.
Like Cabernet
Yeah.
Sauvignon was an easy bet. It's a very easy grape to grow. It grows well in many different parts of the world. I think that's what brought him there. Not so much as deeply understanding the terroir. That came after a few years, kind of
Okay.
understanding what we're dealing with. They knew that good wine can be made here, and they were trying and trial and error, and look what happened after a few short years.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful to see what happens with our wine culture here.
Do you want to talk about a few key players that you feel really established, um, their own growing region, let's say, or their own appellation, and how they helped maybe to educate? And I know several folks came to California here, um, France, Australia, Italy. Who do you think, if you had to isolate one or two people that really helped shape this, who would you say sticks out in your mind?
Well, like in a lot of places in the world, they were the big corporate wineries, and small wineries came through and broke ahead. The
Yeah.
fact that you could be a small operation and try new stuff and work by yourself really helped to push the industry forward. And the two main key players that did that in the early 80s are the main characters of the film, which is the
Yeah.
Margalit family,
Yeah.
talking about Yair Margalit and his son Asaf Margalit, and Eli Ben Zaken from Domaine du Castel,
Yeah.
which are both small wineries. They started small by planting their own vineyards, making wine, first of all for themselves, and then realized that they could make really good wine. So they kind of grew into being a commercial winery, but
Yeah.
very small boutique commercial winery. And
What's
they met.
considered very small for these folks? How many cases or bottles a year for production are we talking?
I would say, well, when they started or today.
Both.
Uh, when they started, it was a couple of thousand bottles.
Okay.
uh,
Wow.
and it grew from there. Today, I think the Margalit winery, which remains very small, makes around 30,000 bottles,
Oh, wow.
35,000 bottles. Very, very small, very, very high quality. Like it's the best of the best. And I could say the same about the Maine du Castel, which have grown to do around 350,000 bottles. And that's still considered pretty small, but much
Yeah.
bigger than 30,000 bottles. But
Right.
they still maintain that quality and that family-owned business.
Yes,
Uh, both families work in the wineries and make their own wine, which is
exactly.
all beautiful.
Um, you have the who's who of like wine media and stars in this movie. I noticed you've got, Eric Asimov of the New York Times. You've got Michel Rolland, which is, a world-class wine consultant, a former Petrus winemaker, Robert Parker wine advocate. How did you get all these folks together? Did you travel and interview them, and were they pretty enthusiastic to talk about, what's going on with Israeli wine?
Yeah, so it took some time, but I was very happy to gain those kind of personalities in our
Yeah,
film to make it more internationally well known, which is part of the reason for the movie. So Michel Roland is a consultant here for the Amphora winery. Has been. I don't think he's doing it today, but he
currently.
has been several years here, and um, a former Petrus winemaker. He's the consultant of Torah Winery, which is also one of the first boutique, very important wineries that make fantastic wine. Um, so they were here, and I went to New York and Philadelphia to get the writer of Eric Asimov in New York and the writer of the Wine
Advocate.
Advocate. Yes.
Oh, and
Um,
restaurateurs. You've got Michael Solomonov also in this movie.
yes. Yes. So I was there in Philadelphia
Uh,
and um, I just managed to talk to him. I was interested in him. I heard he made a different movie about Israeli cuisine. So
yes,
interesting about, wine and culinary work, seamlessly together, of course, as we know. So I was trying to get some of that culinary information and opinion about
yeah,
Israeli wine, especially from abroad. And he was very kind to offer me his time. And yeah, so I was lucky at the right place at the right time, and made a few good connections during this
nice.
production.
Yeah, it definitely, like you said, it gives a worldview to the issue and really brings in that food component. I mean, here in the Napa Valley, not California, they really go hand in hand. And I was so surprised to learn in your film that despite Tel Aviv being this, really international destination for food and nightlife and people from, just all different walks of life, that Israelis aren't like everyday wine drinkers, not necessarily, or that they, yeah. So I thought we would talk about that a little bit, like wine consumption in Israel, and then maybe that'll take us a little bit into that identity crisis we talked about. Were you surprised to learn that? Because you drink wine.
Yes, I drink wine. My surroundings drink wine. A lot of Tel Aviv. I mean, as you said, it's a culinary mecca and party city, and everything's a little bit different here than around Israel. But even here, it's kind of getting different right now. If the wine culture is being built right now. It
Wow.
started from the pioneers who created quality wine. If it's the Golan Heights winery with Victor Schoenfeld, and if
Yes.
it's the Margalites and Benzaken family and Tzora Winery, and all these people are working hard and creating this culture, and it's working. There are many more people drink wine today here than ever before. But compared to European countries, we're a young culture. We're growing the culture now. We have ancient history, and I talk in the film about how ancient and how back we go. But we are young, and we say this. The winemakers themselves say it in the movie that we are a young culture. We're just starting up, and so it's growing.
Yeah.
I was surprised that the number was so low. It started from about when I started researching the film in 2012. It was
Whoa.
yes, it's a while back. It was like 4.5 liters per capita, and it's growing now. It's over 6, 7 probably. There's no real information. It's all speculation about exactly how much. It's not completely organized. The appellation system has only been started right now. It's like we're young and
Wow.
growing.
It's so exciting.
Fascinating.
Um, do we know how much Israeli wine is exported outside the country every year, and specifically to the United States?
I know that most of I don't want to say any incorrect numbers, but most of the export is to the United States,
Like, I think if I
by
read
large.
55%, maybe. Does that sound right?
From the entire quality, from the entire amount produced.
I think. But that might have been
Um,
an old number.
yeah, I don't want to state any number that I'm not sure about. I'm not
Sure.
sure it's 50%. It sounds a little bit high, but yeah, the wine here is the wine drinking and the wine scene is growing. More and more people get into it. More of the young generation, which is sometimes an issue to get them into this culture, is growing a lot. The Corona kind of kicked that in the butt, and uh a lot of people stayed at home and drank wine, so it was another a good
Oh,
boost for the industry. um
wow.
yeah, it's fascinating to see it grow and evolve, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Um, I'm sure your film had something to do with that. Uh, the most
I'm
fascinating
trying.
um, the most fascinating part was about, I feel like about halfway in, um, we start as Jews to, have this existential crisis with with the role of kosher, and I was blown away to learn, um, just like almost like the socio-political issues involved with kosher wine labeling, um, the financial benefits of doing that, how necessary it is if you want to increase your if you want to increase consumption, but also, the inner turmoil that a lot of winemakers feel as a result of going that route. I
Yes.
had so many questions about that, but mostly I thought I wanted to hear from you because you had such an intimate experience talking to these folks. What stands out in my mind is when the matriarch for Flam Winery, when
Mhm.
she talks about how traumatic it was for her son, that he couldn't even stick the wine thief in the barrel, he couldn't touch his pumps or his hoses. Uh, so can you just kind of sum that up for us and explain kind of where we're at with the role of kosher?
Yeah, so basically, I wanted to do a movie that tells the story of Israel wine, and let the world know, because one of the big things the research showed me that, and I talk about it in the film, that a lot of people think that wine coming from Israel is only kosher wine. Is kosher wine is not considered high quality, and therefore there's no good reason to drink any wine from Israel. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to show the real meaning of it and to correct a lot of misconceptions. So so basically it started from there, but as I went into the research and discovered more and more things about this kosher system, I realized that a lot of this system is working kind of in a wrong way, and I wanted to do my part in kind of bringing it to the table and having people discuss about it and seeing if it's right or wrong or should be changed. For example, when a winery starts small, it has a winemaker, usually a family-owned winemaker, for example. And when it wants to grow, uh, when it reaches the point of 100,000 bottles, um, it's very difficult to sell your wine in that amount without being able to sell your wines in supermarkets, and um, they have to go kosher. So all the supermarkets, almost all the supermarkets in Israel are kosher. If you don't have a kosher product, you can't get into the supermarkets. You can't
I
sell your
didn't know
wine.
that. I know I was fascinated by that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that there is kosher laundry detergent and kosher plastic silverware, and how that increases your bottom line. I mean, it's more expensive to do
we
that.
mentioned the wine advocate before. When I interviewed Mark Squires, one of his lines in the movie, he says that, when you walk around in Israel, it looks, normal. It's not like a religious
No,
place that, uh, especially in Tel Aviv, but all over the country. It's not like it's secular people. It's Jewish secular people. We also have many Christians and Muslims. We live together. So it's not necessarily known that all the markets, like big
yeah,
supermarket chains, are only holding kosher products. If you want to sell to union workers for gifts for the holidays and stuff like that, if you're not a kosher winery, you can't sell your product to those companies, because every company might have a religious person, and not to do any wrong with the religious needs, they need to have kosher wine. So you're very limited. So many of our wineries, when they get to 100,000 uh, uh, bottles
bottles.
production, they have to get kosher certification. What does that mean? Basically, in short, it means that the winemaker, the one who was making the wine, has to take his key of his barrel room, give
His
it to
seller, give it to
yes, give it
a
to a new
religious
staff.
Jew.
He has to fire all his wine making staff. Marketing is fine, but the winemaking staff, he has to get religious
Anyone who
Orthodox,
comes into contact with it.
and he must not touch the wine, touch the hoses, touch the barrels. He can't, if he needs a taste of wine, he has to ask the
Ask
guy, the
for.
supervisor, the kosher supervisor, to give him the wine. He can't, Eli Benzaken says it beautifully, go down at night to his wine
Oh,
cellar to be alone with his wine. Something that for us it sounds really natural, and I'm sure some winemakers would love to do that. Think of an idea for a new blend and go down and mix stuff around. He cannot do that, and
like a
none
real
of the
artist. Yeah.
yeah. So in big commercial wineries, it's maybe less important, but still, why would a Jewish winemaker might not should not be allowed to make his own wine, let alone touch his barrels? I mean, come on, it's we're not in ancient times anymore. Things should be changing.
And this law was is not in our book. Where did this halacha come from?
Um, Basically, it's quite new. The entire kosher certification system, we talk about it extensively in the movie. It's fairly new. It started even in the early 20th century. There was no kosher certification. But, as religions do, they realized that they could have, from coming from a place of power, have control over certain industries, and they use that to their advantage. Another prominent winemaker, Roni Saslov, in the film, tells the story of when they had to go kosher because they were growing. She had to
Yes.
fire all her staff.
Yeah.
She's a brilliant winemaker, and she had to fire all her staff. She's been working years
Yeah.
just to get these Orthodox workforce to make her wine.
Yeah, that
That's
was
quite
sort of
unfortunate.
heartbreaking, but she did such a nice job of showing how complex the issue is. It's not just like,
It
"Oh,
is.
well, I'm not gonna do that. I have my values." She wanted more people to experience her wine, and to do that, this was a decision she had to make. Another winemaker in the film made such a beautiful point that he finds the law so, demoralizing, almost like to the point that he feels that he's being seen as a second class Jew. I thought that was really poignant too. As the
Yeah.
country continues to become what seems like more religious, do you see this being how do you see this going down in the future? Do you think it's going to be an uphill battle?
It is an uphill battle, especially at these times with this government. It's the most far right religious government we ever had. A lot of secular rights are being thrown away, but I'm kind of optimistic. In general, I think these religious laws of any religion, of any westernized religion, modern religion, is realized to be, not necessary. There's a tradition that is very important to cherish and to practice and to celebrate the holidays and to understand where we come from and our roots and all that. But in practice, these are laws that are fairly new. And you know what? Even if they are 2,000 years old, which they are not, so what? It doesn't really matter. We could change how we do things.
Exactly.
Uh,
Evolve.
one of the winemakers, Arkady Papikian in the movie, quotes Michel Rolland saying that traditions that don't develop will die.
Yeah, I remember that.
I
That's pretty
want to keep
powerful.
I want to keep our tradition. It's important, but at what cost? Should a winemaker not be able to make his own wine? There is no non-kosher food or any ingredient put in the wine. And
Right.
let alone we are talking about Jewish winemakers. And that's where the second-class Jew comes in because, you know, even if he was, let's say, Christian or an atheist or something that I don't know is not connected to the Jewish tradition, he should still be able to make the wine. But we have this entire kosher system. It's been in going for tens and tens of years. They have a chokehold on the industry, and my idea was to kind of bring it for discussion to maybe start making a change.
And if that law is going to stick around, at least I know in the United States, the government supports the wine industry in various ways, providing money for research on climate change, providing marketing opportunities for wineries. Is there a possibility that the government would, keep these laws, but also support the growth of the wine industry as like a major avenue for tourism?
There are many problems the wine industry faces. Um, we can't discuss all of them in this movie, but
Yeah.
uh, definitely no support whatsoever from this government, from any government in the past. They still don't realize the potential of how wine culture and wine tourism could impact the life here. It's pretty easy to understand if you ask me, especially when everybody else is doing it. But
Yeah.
winemakers are really having a hard time. They get zero funding from the government, no help at all. And with the rise of costs and everything getting so expensive all around the world, it's becoming harder. And
It's really a shame because the movie is almost like it's so stunningly shot. It's like an
thank you.
advertisement for like come to Israel. I mean the it's so gorgeous. That really struck me as like I was like thinking, well, the last time I was Israel, I didn't go wine tasting. I totally missed out. Like, what was I thinking? I did all these, went to the Wailing Wall. I went here. I went, did this, but it's on my list for next time.
We have we'll be happy to see you visiting here. There are amazing wine routes and amazing wine culture from the north to the south. It's everywhere. Hundreds of wineries are all around the country. It's beautiful. The wine is fantastic. What I was so happy to find out making this movie that the people themselves in the industry, the families, the winemakers, the supporting staff, everybody are amazing people. And it's so much fun to be a part of it and seeing it grow and becoming and making great wine. And I'm trying to do my part in making it known to the world.
That's wonderful. I do have a question. Since the film was made or released in 2021,
Yes.
and had its world premiere here in Sonoma, um, how has the war, if at all, affected wine production and what they're doing?
We are just finishing a 2-year film festival circuit with the film, starting at the world premiere, as you mentioned, in the Sonoma International Film Festival. And we did a round trip and we were finishing it again in California, which is fantastic. And we had the movie is not shown here. It hasn't shown here yet. We
Oh my
were
gosh,
about
that was my next question. How was it
we were
received in
about
Israel?
to yeah, we planned, it was all already planned and produced a big premiere at the end of 2023, with the entire industry having a big event. But then 7th of October started, which started a devastating time here. Especially with the news of today with the hostages. It's heartbreaking. We canceled the premiere, of course, and we put it on ice until things are resolved and our people could breathe and start over and get back to showing this film to the world. It's very hard times here.
I'm so sorry. It's going to make a splash, absolute splash when it does come out. What's your next project?
Oh well,
If you
this
can talk
issue.
about it.
No, I'll be happy to talk about it. It's currently in pre-production and research. Um, we are trying to take what we learned and made with holy wine and get the message further about what's going on here with the kosher laws. And the wine world is a small, very important, but small part of it, because these kosher laws are, extend to all parts of life here. And let's start talking about the culinary life and how it affects that. I mentioned the fact that all the supermarket chains here are kosher. Um, and there's a lot of very strict religious rules. We are the Jewish land of Israel. We are a Jewish country. That does not mean we have to be religious. That does not mean we have to be Orthodox. A
What
lot,
about the restaurants, Shai? Are there restaurants?
most people here are secular, but
Yeah.
the Orthodox part of especially this uh, very outlandish, ridiculous government is getting its chokehold, and I have to do something about it. We have this has to be discussed, and so that would be a part of my next project about revealing some more truths about what's going on here.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it. It's really illuminating for us over here. We just don't know that a lot of this is going on, and I'd love to know how it affects the restaurant industry as well, not just grocery stores.
Well, one of the reasons that I started the project is I discovered that a lot of people don't even know what kosher means. It's a very used word. Everybody, Jewish, non-Jewish, everybody in the world uses it. That's kosher, that's not kosher, as something of good and bad. But when it comes to wine, I discovered that it's like considered kind of a bad thing. And I was, flabbergasted about it. Why is that? And so part of the things that we do in the movie is actually explain exactly what it is down to the details so people would know. But
Yeah, and
also,
that it doesn't change the winemaking, the grapes, that anything at
wine,
all.
no, there's no difference.
There's
There's no
no
difference
difference.
between kosher wine and wine, not in the juice, not in the wine, not in the product. What is different is the people who make it, which we
Right.
discussed previously.
Wonderful. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time, and I'm super excited for your next project. Any idea when we might see something like that come out? It's in the early
Um,
stages right now.
It's very early stages. We're still trying to premiere this movie,
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna take some time, but hopefully in a couple of years,
wonderful.
it'll start to get into the editing room.
Okay. Well, thanks again for speaking with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I
Sure.
appreciate it.